Hi there. Do you ever find yourself doing something you don't want to do? You know you shouldn't be doing it, yet you continue doing it anyways. What is it that makes us want to do the thing we don't want to do? What makes us want to continue down the path we don't want to walk? All right. Yeah, we're going to talk about what holds us back and what prevents us from doing what we want to do on this episode of the All Around Growth podcast. This is a show where we talk about how and why we build the lives of our dreams. My name is Rob Kaiser and I am your host. And today is Tuesday, January 26th, 2021. And this is episode number 84 of the All Around Growth podcast. And the title of today's show is Self-Sabotage. All right, self-sabotage refers to behaviors or thought patterns that hold you back and prevent you from doing what you want to do. And today's show is an audience feedback show. And these are perhaps the most important shows to me. These are the ones that matter the most. Why? Well, basically what this means to me is that I'm reaching someone out there. Maybe that's you. Maybe we're connecting with each other in a way that is desperately needed. If that's the case, I'd like to encourage you to share this episode. Whether it's on social media or just in a text to a family or a friend. A solid and positive connection with someone is incredibly important in today's world, where we are becoming increasingly disconnected with one another. Despite a tremendous increase in the actual manner in which we can stay connected in the age of distraction, and in moments like this, we can tune it out. And accordingly, we can tune into ourselves and take a moment to be quiet and think. We think about things such as, what is it that makes us want to do the thing we don't want to do? What makes us want to continue down the path we don't want to walk? Why do we do things against our own goals? Take a moment, be quiet, and think about this for a minute. Why do we do things against our own goals? So we're going to talk about that today, all right? Today we're thinking and talking about self-sabotage. As I said earlier, self-sabotage refers to patterns. So let me reread that last thing I'm going to actually read before we hit the road. Quote, self-sabotage refers to behaviors or thought patterns that hold you back and prevent you from doing what you want to do. All right, so, yikes, I just hit some ice and there's a car coming. Cripes. I misjudged the distance on that one, ladies and gentlemen. Bear with me while I regroup here and sorry about that, mister. Or miss. Or, well. All right, moving forward. Let me reread that quote here real quick. Self-sabotage refers to behaviors or thought patterns that hold you back and prevent you from doing what you want to do. So there's two things there, behaviors and thought patterns, okay? And that quote was pulled up from a search on DuckDuckGo, and I just typed in self-sabotage, and the very first article that popped up was an article from Healthline titled "How Self-Sabotage Holds You Back." And I've linked to that article in the show notes, and it was really quite a lengthy article. And what I did was I included the key points that were highlighted in the article, and you can actually go into the article, see the key points, and read the detail on them yourselves. But what I did was I utilized the key points of that article, which will serve as my talking points for the show today. Now, how self-sabotage holds us back. And I guess the thing is, like, why do we? My notes don't really make sense, but I believe this was actually. I'm here at a stoplight. Let me click on the link myself and see how these talking points actually come together. What does it look like? Okay, what does self-sabotage look like? Now I can go back to my talking points. You can sabotage yourself in a number of ways. Okay. So here we go. How do we do this, right? What are we doing when we self-sabotage? Do we blame others when things go wrong? We choose to walk away when things aren't really going smoothly? Do we procrastinate? Do we pick fights with friends or partners? Or are we acting in a passive-aggressive manner with people? There's a number of things that we can do. Date people who aren't necessarily right for us, put ourselves down, engage in a lot of negative self-talk. Okay? So, I think at the end of the day, these are some examples that they list of what self-sabotage is. And, if you're new to this show and you're not really aware of what self-sabotage is, what that looks like, what it means, those are some good indicators and things that you can keep in mind. Now, for those of us that are very aware of self-sabotage, that are asking us questions, asking ourselves questions, like, what is it that makes us want to do the things we don't want to do? What is it that makes us want to continue walking down the path we don't want to walk? And why do we do things that are against our own goals? This shit doesn't make sense. So these are the good questions to ask, in my opinion, because what it does is we are asking questions that get down to the root cause of the issue. And I'm going to come back to that because I'm getting away from my talking points here. And while this is going to run a little long because I've got to run into town and drop a thank you note in the mail, and I want to make sure that it gets in the post office box today. So I may have a little bit of extra time to get back into that. So we shall see. But what causes this self-sabotage? What are the contributing factors to it? Okay, and this also contributes to why. Patterns learned in childhood, past relationship dynamics, the fear of failure, and a need for control. Okay? So what we've got is, like, what is self-sabotage? What does that look like? What causes self-sabotage? You know, we're all dealing with it in some way, shape, or form. And for those who aren't necessarily dealing with it as much, perhaps this can be some information that you can just sort of keep in the back of your mind and know that you can reference it in the future for when you do. Because I don't think this self-sabotage is limited to certain people. I think it's just a matter of how much, how frequently, and to what degree you engage in it. So the tips Healthline lists for overcoming self-sabotage is identifying the behaviors, learn what sets you off, practice getting comfortable with failure, talk about it, and identify what you really want. All right, that, in my opinion, is critical, is identifying what you really want. I think we go through life oftentimes uncertain of what it is that we really want, and we are drawn to certain people who are doing certain things, and for whatever reason, you know, we find that attractive and we try to replicate it in our own lives, and that may not be the most appropriate thing to do. And I'm at a point where I'm realizing that right now as I try to figure out my passion, my purpose, and my why, because the context and the situation of my life is effectively changed, and I need to find my purpose, my passion, and my why without any attachment to any land or any place. And that is that presents a unique set of challenges. Now, the article goes on when to seek help. I'm going to close out my talking points, but get back to a couple of them after this. And the timing might be right with how I and when I arrive at the post office, so we shall see. All right, when to seek help. It's not always easy to recognize and stop some self-sabotaging behaviors, especially patterns you've followed for years on your own. If your efforts to try different behaviors and responses haven't worked, or only work for a while, therapy may be a good option. There's no shame in needing professional support. All right, I wanted to include that quote from the article specifically, all right, because I am not ashamed of therapy or counseling or whatever you want to call it in whatever manner you seek. I think there's value to it. I'm not actively going to any kind of counseling right now, other than some financial coaching, which one might actually consider falls into the category of life coaching, if you will, based on the nature of how the individual operates. But in the past, I have just seen I guess he referred to himself as a counselor. You know, he wasn't any kind of person that could prescribe pharmaceuticals or anything like that, but he was just a counselor, a therapist. And for me, he was an unbiased person that I could talk to and provide feedback on what I was experiencing in life, and that was important to me and helped me process some of those challenging times where I believe I was engaging in some self-sabotage. And I bring that up because that's my own personal experience, And I believe that's important to share because I think there is some sort of stigma attached with counseling or therapy or whatever you want to call it. And, perhaps there is. So what? You got to do what's best for you, man. And I did what's best for me, and I want to get into these patterns of behavior, and the patterns are important to me. But the one thing that I want to close up on is how the Healthline article came to close itself. It said the bottom line: self-sabotaging behaviors are often deeply ingrained and hard to recognize. And once you do recognize them, noticing how you hold yourself back can be hard to come to terms with. Oh man, isn't that the truth? All right, the article goes on and says, but keep in mind, by recognizing these behaviors, you've taken the first step towards changing them. And you don't have to do it alone. Friends, loved ones, and trained therapists can all offer support. And you know what? There's another way that you can get support too. And when I started doing this podcast, I specifically said, you don't have to do it alone. This podcast and the community is the community that we've been seeking. At this point in time, our community is small but vibrant and strong. And I would encourage you who are listening to this, if you're not already part of it, go to t.me/allaroundgrowth and get involved in the community, learn what's up, and be a part of the show, just like this show today. This is an audience feedback show, and I'm hoping that this is hitting on some of the desired points that we wanted to address. So, yes, friends, loved ones, therapists and counselors can offer support. And, I'd like to think that what we're becoming in the Telegram group, if we're not already, is friends. So come on and join us. It's awesome, all right? And these things, let me scroll back here as I get into the post office and look at the questions that we're asking ourselves. Okay? What is it that makes us want to do the thing we don't want to do? What makes us want to continue down the path we don't want to walk? Why do we do things against our own goals? All right. These are excellent questions. And these are also questions we'll get back to in just a minute. So I'm at the post office now. What's awesome is I was given a little gift last night. Somebody was thinking about me, and this is what happens when you get involved in your community. You get to know people. You build relationships. People think about you, and in turn, you think about them. I'm dropping a thank you card in the mail saying thank you for the little gift. When people engage in you and vice versa, but more specifically when people engage in you, it is important, critical to give thanks, okay? And I believe the act of cards in the mail, thank you cards for things that don't necessarily require thank you cards, and excuse me, I'm drinking a carbonated beverage this morning to wet my whistle, but it's making me burp. And this is an unedited and raw podcast, so this is what you signed up for, friends. All right. But this attitude of gratitude is just one of the ways that we go about repatterning our life. And when we are asking ourselves questions like, what is it that makes us want to do the thing we don't want to do? What makes us want to continue down the path we don't want to walk? Why do we do things against our own goals? We, like I said earlier, we are getting down to the root cause of the self-sabotage that we're actively engaging in. Why do we do the things that we do? And I am actively going through a process where that is the specific question that is at the core of the exercise that I'm engaging in. And I've done episodes on this in the past, but the work of self-authoring and the manner in which it's laid out by Jordan Peterson and others is proving to be a beneficial exercise for me to go through and review and write about the different epochs in my life in a structured way. And that is helping me identify what is at the root of these behaviors and these thought patterns, because we don't actually have to do anything, okay, that is or can be perceived as negative or harmful. The thought alone is enough to facilitate that in our own life. And it's I'm going through a book study right now on the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, originally published in 1937, and we are reading an updated and revised edition that I believe was published or republished, whatever the term is, in 2017. And I bring this up because this book study is a part of the 48 Days Eagles community that I have recently become a member of. And I think what's important is when you begin to recognize certain patterns in life and how they've contributed to the self-sabotage that is on our minds, we have to begin to execute on all of the knowledge that we've been taking in. And this is the hard part, because it the Healthline article was laid out in an interesting manner. We first took a look at identifying what self-sabotage looks like, and then we took a look at what causes it. Okay? Patterns learned in childhood, past relationship dynamics, fear of failure, a need for control, because we don't necessarily have control in other aspects of our life. And I'm interested in the root cause, and I'm interested in analyzing all of the things that contribute to it. But I noticed in life, maybe it's always been this way, maybe my perspective is changing, I don't know anymore, but I sometimes find myself observing people who consistently talk about the cause of the particular issue that they're dealing with, okay? So that's all well and good. I think it's important to identify the cause, but if we continue to focus on the cause instead of focusing on the solution, then we are doing ourselves, and quite frankly, the others around us, but ourselves, a disservice. It's important to identify the cause, but it's equally, if not more important, to identify the solution and what we can do and how we can overcome all of these things that are contributing to the self-sabotage in the first place. All right? And so if you're anything like me, you've been taking in information. Once you've realized this, you're at this point in life where you wish to make a change, but you're really not sure how to make the change. So you begin absorbing information. And our ability to absorb information is, it's ridiculous. We have access to so much, so frequently. And it's, and subsequently we can become overwhelmed with information. And I think that this information overload is oftentimes what contributes to the analysis paralysis that many of us find ourselves experiencing in life. And this analysis paralysis is, quite frankly, the procrastination, or one way in which procrastination is manifested. And that is one of the things that is at the very core of self-sabotage. So, these once we actually realize that we're engaging in these patterns of self-sabotage, and once we actually begin asking ourselves questions like why do we do things against our goals? Like when we begin really thinking about this stuff, that's the first step. And the longest journey begins with that first step. And the thing is, we begin and we continue asking ourselves new questions almost every day. And it never ends. So the key point is when we begin asking ourselves questions and we realize these patterns of behavior, we acknowledge that they're destructive. And at some point, I think that it's good to cripes, I lost my train of thought. I think it's good to absorb information. Okay? But like I said, because there's an abundance of information, it can be overwhelming. And things really begin to change when we engage in consistency with these patterns of change. Healthy, positive, and beneficial change. Now, life goes through a series of ebbs and flows. And I think I've been mindful of this this desire for repatterning of my life for about 10 years, I would say. When I felt like I peaked out in the corporate world and began to restructure and reposition my life, I started having some of these thoughts, and this podcast is almost somewhat of an attempt to house them in a manner that is somewhat centralized on what I'm actively doing and changing my life. But the worst part and the worst time of my life in the past 10 years was when I found myself chasing other people's dreams, and the chasing of other people's dreams led to living an inauthentic life, and an inauthentic life led to financial debt and unhappiness. Despite a decent paying job, I thought that, I was miserable. So, while I was already in the process of making changes, I found myself a few years ago miserable and in a position to need to make more changes. And I think that while there's so much good information and so many good things out there to take in, we can only do so much. We are only human. And we need to understand our limitations. Then more specifically, we need to act upon them, all right? So take in the good, but also release what no longer serves you. It is critical to let this stuff go. Find a way to let it go. Okay? Because only when we begin to let go can we really begin to focus on what it is that we are trying to do, the good things that are not behaviors of self-sabotage. We need to set goals. All of this is an attempt to allow for and facilitate an optimal life. The goals are paramount. We need to live by them. And I'm learning how to do this better. I'm a firm believer in the best self journal. If you don't use it and you're struggling with some stuff in your life, man, give it a try. Use it quarterly. It's a 13-week journal. It will help you find some of the structure that you're looking for to work towards the solutions that you seek. I'm a big believer in it. And also, one of the things you can do is keep listening to this podcast, because this is what we talk about here in large part. So I hope that this episode was a valuable use of your time. And if it was, share it with someone. And again, if you think it was a valuable use of your time, go to the show notes, scroll all the way to the bottom of the show notes. You can click to rate and review the podcast. That'll take you to Apple Podcasts. Give it a 5-star rating. And if you feel so inclined, give a written review as well. Those things really help the podcast at this point in time with the algorithms and the metrics that take place through Apple Podcasts. So last but not least, I would very much encourage you, if you like what you heard, to go to t.me/allaroundgrowth. Or if you've got the Telegram Messenger app on your phone, search for us in the groups. We are listed under All Around Growth. We would love to have you be a part of the group with us and contribute to the show, and just learn what good community is all about. We've got like I said, small but vibrant community, but we are growing every day, and we'd love for you to be a part of it with us too. This is Rob Kaiser, and you've been listening to the All Around Growth Podcast. Thank you.